Been running on a Friday night here on VSiN PrimeTime. We are presented by ZYN nicotine pouches. For more, head over to ZYN.com. That is Jonathan Von Tobel. To my left, I am Tim Murray. We're live from the Circus Sportsbook in downtown Las Vegas. Hour one of the program, as always, you can stream for free on YouTube, youtube.com/VSiN Live. And JVT, we signed off last night. We went and got a beverage. We watched for a little bit as the Celtics and Cavs went back and forth, and as we all expected, a 13.5-point underdog that had not scored over 96 points on the road with J.B. Bickerstaff as their head coach in the playoffs, scored 118 points and won, going away by 26 points. It was a whooping by the Cleveland Cavaliers last night.
Yeah, it was. So I went back and rewatched it last night, and man, shout out to Evan Mobley. What a game. Like, you could argue the best game of his career. Stat line was great, too, when you're talking about 21 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, 9 of 15 shooting, but was brilliant on defense, was really just working through so many actions offensively in the first half, and did a lot of his damage offensively in the first half, but defensively was on it all game long. And Tim, one of the things that really stuck out is, as the primary center, as the role guy, Celtics didn't really have a lot of answers for him, and that's what really led to all of this. And then the best part is, in the third quarter, Evan Mobley picks up a foul. I believe it was his fourth foul. So you're like, well, it's been the impetus of all their offense. They haven't had much from anybody else. What's going to happen here? Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell take over. They're absolutely brilliant. Mitchell's great in the third quarter overall. Ends up with 29 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists for the contest. This is what they've been looking for Evan Mobley for a really long time. This is what they've been looking for the other role players. Darius Garland was actually very good. He was 4 of 5 from three-point range. He had been non-existent throughout the entire series. Going into that game the other night, Darius Garland, the worst in total plus-minus for the Cavaliers in the postseason at minus 63. The next worst player was at minus 32. So he had been awful throughout this postseason. So you get these guys to show up in a really big way, and that really helps you. You have 3 20-point scorers last night, and the Celtics come away tied 1-1. And now, by the way, playing 500 basketball at home, Tim. They are just
15 and 15?
Yep. Well, in the postseason. I'm talking about at home. They have not been playing good basketball at home, the Celtics have. So interesting as you go on the road. We'll have more on this, I think, as you bounce back. But what really stuck out was the play of Mobley. And you do have to question 2 things. The obvious one, which is this going to happen again? Because you had a really good shooting performance. However, I would argue you shot like crap, under 30% from 3 against Orlando. You assumed at some point water was going to find its level, and it did. The second part is, when Jarrett Allen comes back, are you going to go back to this 2-big lineup and try to do this thing that offensively doesn't really work? Or are you going to allow Evan Mobley, and no fault to Jarrett Allen, but you can allow Evan Mobley to grow and be like, look, this guy's a 5. Let's let him thrive here a little bit. Let's put him at the top of the key. Let's let him work. Let's do these things, because he looked really comfortable, and you spread the floor out, and you shot really well. So be fascinated by those 2 things as you move in. But you got to give a shout-out to the Cavaliers. They played extremely well. And we can go to the Celtics, too. Look, they shot under 30% from 3. They were very, very poor in non-garbage time from beyond the arc. That's not going to continue again. So looks like an interesting bounce-back spot on the road as 8-point favorites for Game 3.
Yeah, Celtics, you set the over-under at, 3.5 losses throughout the entire Eastern Conference portion of the playoffs. They will not get a sweep. Anyone who laid 2.5 games, maybe sweating a little bit with this series tied at 1-1. Just a reminder, they did drop Game 2 to Miami at home and then followed it up by a resounding victory. Late night, we saw a very impressive performance by the Dallas Mavericks. We will get to this game certainly and in depth too, as the Mavericks even up this series at 1 game apiece, 119-110 victory. Luka Doncic played well. But man, every time you look at him, he looked like he was in pain last night. 29 points for Luka. PJ Washington was phenomenal, shooting 7 of 11 from 3. Tim Hardaway Jr. off the bench played very well. And, it's been said on multiple forums today, and I'll reiterate, Kyrie Irving, tip of the cap to him, because he did not have a monster offensive game. Only shot eight times, but defensively you felt his presence throughout the game, had 11 assists. And, for as much has been said, rightfully so, about Kyrie Irving and how he's been let's be honest, a hindrance in number of stops, this was a little bit of a maturation type of performance here as they get the victory on the road, even up this series, heading back to Dallas on on Sunday. Interesting to note here for that game on Saturday, is it is an early game, so a pretty quick turnaround for I believe it will be a 2:30 local time tip time in Dallas.
So I think there's a couple of interesting angles here. The first of which is like PJ Washington, right? You have to start there. So as a team, you look at it and you go, okay, well, are the Mavericks going to be able to shoot 48.6% again from 3-point range? On the surface, you would say no, probably not. What's more fascinating is PJ Washington, 7 of 11 from 3. Obviously, probably not something that's sustainable. But for a guy, Tim, that this season, in the regular season, shot just under 32% from 3. This last season for Charlotte, 2022, 2023, in 73 games, he shot 35% from 3. Now, he was a better shooter at the early portions of his career, but since 21-22, when he shot 37% on, let me double check, 284 attempts, he's been an abysmal three-point shooter. So is that going to be able to continue? Are you going to be able to get these attempts from P.J. Washington to go down? Because when you watched him yesterday, I thought Oklahoma City was doing the right thing. Derrick Jones Jr. had 5 3-point attempts. He was 1 of 5. So you want him to shoot the ball. P.J. Washington, you're like, shoot it, bro. And he was like, okay. And then he kept making those threes. So do you kind of just stick through with the game plan of allow those attempts to ratchet up for these guys? Because the numbers would tell you that these guys aren't going to be able to shoot in that fashion. But this is the one thing that really I think is big here. And we talked a little bit about this yesterday. It seemed the market, to a certain extent, I think we brought this up to Aaron Running, a professional handicapper, was kind of accounting for an injured Luka Doncic. Mm-hmm. And as I kind of brought up, it's like, there's a danger in that. You don't know exactly how healthy he is. And as long as he's playing, he can come out and just play and feel like, oh, my knee feels okay today, and have a really good performance. And sure enough, again, to use the term, water found its level with him because he had been shooting like garbage. 11 of 21, 5 of 8 from three-point range, has 29, 10, and 7. That was kind of the danger with how inflated that line got. And sure enough, they go out there and they lose outright. The Oklahoma City Thunder do. So 1-1, but big shooting performance. I feel like if you're OKC, and Mark Dagnall talked about this yesterday, you're kind of feeling like, yeah, we're fine. Like, we're going to continue to kind of stick with what we're doing, make some tweaks. We'll talk about a big one, I think, a little bit later. But I think overall, you're not overwhelming. Like, you're not too worried because there's some outlier stuff there, specifically from P.J. Washington and others, that you think that you could probably weather the storm and get back to normal. Best
bets coming up bottom of the hour. We'll also be joined in studio by Dustin Sweetelson. Talk a little Major League Baseball. Big card tonight in Major League Baseball. The debut of Paul Skeens tomorrow for the Pittsburgh Pirates. JVT holding on to a 40-1 NL Rookie of the Year ticket on the rookie phenom. Coming up in less than 10 minutes, we will chat with Rick Kamala from SiriusXM's NBA Radio, get his thoughts on tonight's 2 games where we've got New York at Indiana, Denver at Minnesota. And it's funny because it feels like, at least to me, JVT, since Denver, Minnesota hasn't been played for so long, we're focusing more, the collective we, on this New York, Indiana game because of OG Anunoby being out, all the discussion about the questions of refereeing. Jalen Brunson is listed as questionable. And then that tax that you have to pay on teams down 0-2 in the first half. And I bring that up to tell you that the first half line pretty much across the board is Indiana -6 in the first half tonight. Now, just to point out, so far this year, in relative small sample size, teams in this 0-2 hole at home are 2-3 ATS. So it has not been a cash cow by any stretch of the imagination, but the Pacers maybe kicking themselves a little bit from, how everything unfolded, JVT, in games 1 and 2, not getting a win at Madison Square Garden, and the Knicks dealing with a ton of injuries and no OG Anunoby tonight. Knicks Pacers 7.5 right now in favor of the Indiana Pacers.
We might have a snowman out there as well that's starting to pop up, so we'll see if that's going to happen.
Ooh, buddy.
Interesting. I was trying to see if maybe there's some update. Look,
DraftKings is still at 7.
Yeah, and 7's a vast majority of the places.
And as you alluded to, there is an 8 in a far-off land right now.
So we'll see if that's actually something, or maybe you're looking for action in one direction. But look, this is going to ping pong around like 7.5. I'm sure it'll close 7.5. I don't think it'll really go anywhere. I think you have to really ask the question of, okay, do you trust Indiana, who is the worst playoff defense right now in this postseason, to win by this margin? And I feel like that's a really big number, even given the fact that I think we know that Jalen Brunson is going to play. We haven't had any official indication yet. But I just think that it's hard to ask a team like Indiana, the way that they're playing, leading the league right now in the postseason in offensive rating, Tim, and still barely outscoring your opponents by just under 3 points every 100 possessions through 8 games. can you win by margin with a defense like that? And I just don't know if that's the case here for Indiana. It seems like a lot of points to ask for this team.
It does. We'll talk more about this game, certainly, as we get to best bets. Real quickly, I just want to tee it up. Mr. Ortega, I'm going to throw you at. Do we have the Dante DiVincenzo question and answer here? All right, Dante DiVincenzo, we heard, different media availabilities today, and I just wanted to play this real quick. A, because he's a ginger, so I got to give love to my ginger brother.
Italian.
B, yeah, as some media folks or just one may believe that he is from Italy or Delaware, one or the other. He was asked about, you're up 2-0, JVT. Yeah, you don't need this game, right?
The idea of punting a game and saying, you know what, let's get healthy for this.
Maybe stop there. We ain't punting nothing. We're coming in here to win the game.
What kind of question is that? What if he was like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, we're going to rest. But who needs it? It's a playoff game.
They're good. They're likable. I think Josh Hart was asked about the whole big market thing.
We couldn't play Josh Hart quotes today. Yeah. He may have dropped a couple expletives.
Because, I think it was a F out of here, man. I'm like, what are we doing? We haven't won a title in like 51 years.
Yeah. The Josh Hart quote was hilarious because he said the 51 years, so matter of fact, and then he looked at the camera and goes, I'm sorry, New York, for bringing that up. Also tonight, the defending world champions are down 0-2. And will they get back in the win column as they are a 3.5-point dog on the road at the Minnesota Timberwolves? We'll talk about that game. We'll talk about the two games we watched last night. Talk to New York, Indiana. Rick Hamlin, Sirius XM, NBA Radio joins us next. It's VSiN Primetime.
This is VSiN Primetime with Tim Murray and Jonathan Von Tobel on VSiN, the sports betting network.
We got a spring special for you here at VSiN. How about this? A pro subscription, usually 12 months for $240. We're going to strike that to under $200. We're going to give you 2 more months for free. So 14 months and $199, all if you sign up with the promo code PRIME. That includes everything we do here at the website, articles for every single sport, every single day, betting tools like our parlay calculator and more, plus the betting splits that people like to use as part of their handicap. Again, it is 14 months, less than $200. Check it out now at vsin.com/subscribe.
That's Jonathan Von Tobel. I am Tim Murray. It is VSiN Prime Time. Coming up bottom of the hour, our best bets for tonight and maybe a weekend selection or two. Also, Dustin Sweetelson will jump in studio to help us break down the baseball card tonight. But 2 games tonight, 2 games tomorrow, NBA playoff action. Let's head to our progressive guest line and bring in from SiriusXM's NBA Radio. It is our good friend Rick Kamala who joins us once again on our progressive guest line. Rick, let's go through the games tonight before we revisit what we saw last night. We'll start with the game that will start top of the hour. New York Knicks at the Indiana Pacers. We know no OG Anunoby. It's been a litany of injuries for the New York Knicks, and it hasn't, to this point, seemed to matter all that much. Is tonight the night that they finally feel the injury bug hurt them, or do we expect a close one in Indianapolis?
Fellas, it is great to be back on with you. We may get a very close game regardless. These teams just kind of, these first 2 games have just been exhilarating theater. So, and we're talking about Brunson here. He's not going to take a foot off the gas. He's not going to give anybody anything at any time. So he's going to be out there gunning and trying to keep them in it and trying to win. So I still think it's going to be a competitive game. I do like Indiana tonight, and I am now concerned. This is, you lose Bojan Bogdanovic for the year. Okay, not really a fit with Tom Thibodeau. He doesn't play defense, didn't play all that much. I am really surprised at the way that went and how little he was used. Okay, lose them. Mitchell Robinson blows the tire. Okay, we appreciate the efforts. We can put Achua in there. And they can make that work. They've made it work without Julius Randle because basically, the Nova Knicks have all expanded, okay? But now OG is out, and it's a week-to-week thing according to Shams Charania. They don't have the next man up for that. They don't have the counter for that. You're not going to hit me with Alec Burks, okay? I mean, you might, but that's not going to do anything to move the needle here. In fact, it would move the needle towards Indiana. And so I still think the Knicks are going to get by Indiana, guys, even if OG Anunoby does not play another game in this series. But I think we've all been a little frisky with our opinions about New York. If they beat Indiana, head up with Boston. Then what happens? And so that's where this is taking my brain. I don't think the Knicks can beat the Celtics without OG Anunoby. But I do think they can beat the Celtics with OG Anunoby. So this is a monstrous injury, guys.
So, Rick, what I'm curious about tonight is, does Rick Carlisle adjust at all? Because Jalen Brunson has eaten Andrew Nembhard alive. Nesmith has not bothered him. What does he do to change, if anything? Because whatever they're doing defensively has not bothered Brunson, who, again, last time we saw him, 14 points on 5 of 10 shooting in the fourth quarter.
Well. Now, that is the question right there. I have been beside myself for 2 days. Guys, I'm friendly with Rick Carlisle, okay? He's a Grateful Dead guy. I'm a Grateful Dead guy. We're buddies, okay? And I'm kind of salty with Rick Carlisle right now. I'm not texting him about it, but I'm kind of salty with him right now. What is this, man? TJ McConnell doesn't play like the last 6 minutes or whatever that was. Guys, I have so many questions. McConnell clearly guards him better than anybody on the team. He needs to start, okay? Rock the two-point guard look. Whenever Brunson's in the game, TJ's in the game, okay? And I'm blitzing Brunson periodically just to put that in his brain as well. I've got Nesmith as well. I love Nesmith, guys. He's an elite 3-and-D guy. He's kind of under the radar. Not many people know about him. I love him, okay? And he's long and he's active and he's a dog. Andrew Nembhard is a second-year guy who's having his lunch handed to him, okay? This is ridiculous. Why did Obi Toppin fall out of the game, right? And you had to go with Siakam, right? Turner wasn't giving you anything. I thought Rick Carlisle did an abysmal job of coaching in game 2. Absolutely dreadful. And sending 78 plays for review to the league office. Look, I think it was genuine, right? They're perceiving all of these missed calls. The way I'm reading it is that you're trying to mask your, mistakes by the smoke screen of the controversy of the refs. Guys, I have not been all salty with the refs here. There have been a couple of calls that have been pro-New York, but to me, Rick Carlisle is not pushing buttons here. And I hope he does tonight. Otherwise, you can't continue to guard him the same way. Like Mike Budenholzer got fired last year because he did not change his defense on Giannis Antetokounmpo. We talked about this. He got blown out because of that. Carlisle's not going to get blown out, but this is a highly criticizable move by him.
Late night tonight, Rick, as Rick Kamala joins us here on VSiN PrimeTime on a Progressive guest line. Follow him on Twitter at Rick Kamala Sports. Catch his show, The Give and Go, weekdays 1 to 4 p.m. Eastern on SiriusXM NBA Radio. We've got the defending champs on the ropes, down 0-2, going on the road. Game 2, we've got Jamal Murray throwing heat and packs on the court there. Nikola Jokic wasn't playing all that well. And they're a road dog here, Rick, in this spot, catching 3.5 against a Timberwolves team that's been undefeated so far in this postseason. Do we see the champs bounce back, or is this one all she wrote?
This one, Tim, is a theory. I love the setup, okay? I'm on Denver tonight, but it's a theory. I would not put my wife's car on it, okay? It's a think versus believe thing. I think the champs are going to win tonight. But do I believe it? My belief is really, really shook in this team. I have never seen Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray belittled and humiliated like they were in game 2. I've never seen that. I'm still shocked about it. I really, the only better defense I've ever seen in my life was the no-fly zone Ben Wallace Detroit Pistons that won the chip in 2004, 20 years ago to basically right now, right? And 20 years later, we've got this Minnesota defense. But, I know it's a cliche, but never underestimate the heart of a champion. And so many people have been saying, it's over, it's over, it's over. They're dead, they're done. And so they hear that too. And I think they're going to come out full of octane tonight and get it done. But the thing is, guys, I think that. I don't necessarily believe that. So I'm in a weird limbo zone. It's a stay away from me. If I had to play, I would take the 3.5 on a hunch. And I would probably hedge it in some other areas. But the bottom line is, guys, I'm not ready to say the champs are dead yet. And I know everybody's into the hot take and I got to be first and all that. I don't want to do that, okay? Because I don't want to have to do the retraction segment when I'm wrong.
So I'll ask this, Rick. How important is the way this game is called tonight for Minnesota? Because they've been so physical. They've been pressing them up the court. Doesn't matter who it is, whether it's Jokic or Murray. They've been up in their jerseys almost every single time the entire way. How important is it for the way that this thing is called? Because the Timberwolves have been very, very physical with Denver.
You know what? I think it's less. I love the setup, but I think it's less about the refs and allowing physical play. And that obviously pisses. Look, the Nuggets were frustrated. Okay, and so then you lash out at the refs. I think it was all begot, though, by the Timberwolves and their length and their activity and their dog, and they just took the life out of them. And then they snapped, and then they, did all of the, Murray with the, the dumbassery there. But, I think Minnesota has the solve for Denver, and I didn't think anybody did. So I think all of that stuff was born of frustration. Michael Malone storming on the court. I can't believe he didn't get a technical foul for that, right?
Yeah.
That was crazy. But I like Denver tonight.
Rick Kamala joining us here on VSiN PrimeTime. All right, taking a look either to tomorrow or look back to yesterday, however you want to phrase it, because the Celtics and Cavaliers play tomorrow night in primetime. You and I were going back and forth last night a little bit about the quotes from Jason Tatum. We're going to play that for our audience in hour 2 of the show. But what did you make of what Jason Tatum said last night regarding, there's a narrative of us as a super team, and it just didn't really make a ton of sense. They got blown out by an inferior team last night. What do we expect from the Celtics on Saturday? And Rick, all in all, are you hesitant about this Celtics team moving forward and winning a championship?
I am, because this is not alpha male stuff. This is what Tatum said was whiny and disingenuous about, we didn't win any wars, and he was kind of down in monotone. What is that, dude? Why are we all pouted up? You lost the game. Who cares? Move on. Okay, the Celtics are 14-14 at home in the last 3 postseasons. Let's talk about that elephant in the room, okay? You guys are a mediocre home team at TD Garden in Boston. That does not make any sense. And to me, that speaks to they think it's going to be easy. They think they can just put the shoes on and they got their crowd. No, they're not playing hard enough at home. Opponents are getting fired up by the opposition, yelling, "You suck," and "your mama," and all this kind of stuff. So that's a big issue. Jason Tatum had an opportunity to give us all some tough talk, right, like Jimmy Butler does. Well, Jimmy Butler's not walking the walk as he talks the talk, at least temporarily. But for Jason Tatum, give him some tough talk. We don't care what the critics say. We lost a game. Who cares? We're going to come out in game 3. He didn't do any of that. He got all up into his feelings and stuff. So I thought that was pretty lame. The Porzingis thing is very, very haunting. They're getting nothing from Jrue Holiday right now. I think they've got a war on their hands here, guys. I predicted a 6-game series, and I think we're going long here.
Rick, appreciate it. Great stuff. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, peace out.
There he is, Rick Kamala from SiriusXM's NBA Radio at Rick Kamala Sports. Joined us on our progressive guest line. That's Jonathan Von Tobel. I'm Tim Murray. Best bets and a special appearance from Dustin Sweetelson. Breaking down Major League Baseball's card tonight. Next.
This is VSiN Primetime with Tim Murray and Jonathan Von Tobel on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
VSiN.com. Check it out now. We got a lot of great content up on the website. That includes tons of Major League Baseball content for the day, write-ups for the NBA postseason, our NASCAR preview for the weekend, and Lou Finicaro with his fight picks. That's right, plenty of great content. And then, of course, the betting tools that you can get your hands on. VSiN.com. And when you sign up, if you want a pro subscription, promo code PRIME, we'll give you 14 months for less than $200. Check it out now. VSiN.com.
It's a Friday, a busy day here on VSiN Primetime. You never know who's going to stop by, and sometimes it's nice to bring in a friendly face, maybe a recurring guest. I don't know. We'll see. Dustin Sweetelson, of course, from Sharp Money. You'll catch him on Live Bet Sunday this weekend from 3 to 7 p.m. Eastern, and he and Adam Burke double play a baseball podcast. Mr. Sweetelson, how are you, sir?
Well, I had to get my steps in because JVT and I are in a weight loss competition, and I was slacking on the cardio today, so this helped me walk down from the D down here to Circa, and I wore my 3rd favorite Hawaiian shirt for my 3rd favorite show on VSiN.
There we go. Hey, we're not 4th.
One of the only reasons you're 3rd is because
he's on the other 2.
Yeah, I'm on the other 2. That's why.
Okay.
He knows me well.
It goes over my head. I don't know. I'm like, hey, 3rd's cool. That works for me. All right, we're going to get to the baseball with Justin, but let's get to business at hand. We got 2 basketball games tonight, 2 hockey games tonight, a bunch of baseball. It's time for Best Bets.
I see you using an old style.
I'm giving you the keys to the kingdom.
Putting our money where our mouth is.
I like to live dangerously.
It's time for Best Bets.
Come on, Jerry, it's a lock.
All right, We'll run through these puppies rather quickly. Dustin has some best bets for tonight as well when it comes to the baseball card. But over at VSiN.com, JVT, you wrote up tonight's 2 NBA games and a best bet included. I'm going to be tailing one of those.
Sure.
So what do you like about the Knicks and the Pacers right now?
No, it's just the number. I just don't know if I trust Indiana defensively to cover a number like this here with the New York Knicks. So 7.5. We saw that 8 disappear rather quickly that we were referencing as well. So, and we got some other spots that are now dipping back down to 7. And I think we'll probably close 7.5, 7. The 7.5s will probably be juiced to the dog side, but give me the New York Knicks plus 7.5. Staying inside of this number, I think, is a perfectly attainable feat against this Indiana Pacers defense.
Yeah, and I'll just say pretty much ditto. And also, if you think back to Game 3 of the Bucks-Pacers series, no Giannis. Dame did play in that game, but the Bucks were only a 6.5-point underdog, and the Knicks 7.5. Obviously, we'll miss OG Anunoby, so I'm on the Knicks too. And both JVT and I are on the Celtics -8, which we'll dive into a little bit more as the show goes on. Of course, that game not till tomorrow night. So Knicks plus 7.5 for the two of us, and Celtics -8. Dustin Sweetelson hanging with us here in studio. So Dustin, as always, Friday's busy baseball card. So let's jump right into it, and let's head to Atlanta and the New York Mets. This one going to get going a little past the top of the hour at Citi Field. Pretty decent-sized number you're looking at here for the Atlanta Braves on the road, around -140 on the money line. Total sitting at 7.5. How are you looking to attack Mets-Braves tonight?
Yeah, Tim, I'm not a massive run line better overall. However, it's a situation that I really love as someone who is a Mets fan and knows their offense really well. They're extremely inconsistent. They're not reliable. And Jose Quintana, while he's probably a middle to back end rotation guy for the Mets, I think the Braves have a lot of guys who can mash against him. Albies has 2 homers, a .538 average in a limited sample size. Duvall's taken him yard 2 of his 4 hits against him lifetime. Ozuna hits him well. The Braves notoriously crush left-handed pitching. So in a situation like this, I have a powerful offense on the road. They have the offensive edge that's massive in this game. They also have the pitching edge because somehow Charlie Morton at 40 years old is still getting it done. Career 9 starts at Citi Field, a 3.20 ERA, 2-0 this season. Got roughed up on April 8th by the Mets, but I expect him to bounce back with a good performance. So I'll lay a 1.5 with the road team, which means I get that extra at bat in the ninth.
By the way, that game is in a rain delay, so you got time if you want to go run in there and whatnot and take a piece of this thing. All right, let's go to the Phillies and Marlins. We were talking about this. I'm sure you guys have hit on it.
Our Phillies.
Yes, well, we do have the most wins in May, so hopefully they can pull that off. And then the country's Phillies, because they're on this ridiculous first 5 innings run, and you are going in that direction here against Miami?
Yeah, we're going to go first 5 with Philly. Look, guys, the Marlins stink. They've given up on the season. They've given up on the future. They have controversy throughout the front office, into the clubhouse with the manager. They're already selling parts. The Phillies have won 7 of 8. Marlins lost 5 of 6. And you have to ride Ranger Suarez, starting pitcher, until the wheels fall off. Him emerging as an elite starting pitcher was not on my bingo card this year. 6 innings, or 6-0, 1.72 ERA. He's been awesome, and he's why I love them for a lot of futures bets going forward. Trevor Rogers just allowed 8 earned runs to Oakland last start, and both left-handed pitchers. You've got Miami 28th in OPS versus lefties, Philly 9th OPS versus lefty, and also the vibe tests. Let's pass the vibe test with the Philly. The vibes are just immaculate.
So for those who are unaware, we've mentioned it. I'm sure Mitch mentioned it this morning. On the run line, the Phillies are covering the first 5. 19 of the last 21 games, if you just played it straight up, it's 19-1-2 going back to April 15th. They had a push just the other day against the Blue Jays. So obviously if you laid the run line, you would not have made money there. So on the run line, 19-2 over the last 21 games.
Yeah, I just wouldn't be afraid to lay that half a run, even if you're, minus 130 juice with Philly. When you have an elite team with elite offense, they also have the pitching edge specific to this matchup. But especially when you're going against teams like the Marlins and teams like the White Sox and these bottom feeders who are just not going to put up runs against good starting pitching, don't be afraid to lay that 130 with minus a half run.
I want to jump in here with both of you guys on this question because I know you're looking at it, Dustin. I don't know if you've already taken a slice at it. The Phillies are in first place of the NL East right now. However, the schedule has been very favorable for the Philadelphia Phillies. Right now at DraftKings, they're 2-1. The Phillies are to win the division. Braves still a pretty overwhelming favorite at minus 240. Are the Phillies worth a look to win this division?
Yeah, because it's just as much a fate of the Braves. We have to acknowledge what it means when you lose an ace like Spencer Strider. And we just saw the Braves get swept by the Dodgers over the weekend. And the Braves are supposed to be on that level. But when you don't have that ace every fifth day to end 2-game losing streaks or to prevent them from happening, all of a sudden everything changes. And we look at the Braves rotation. The lineup is elite. It's as good of a lineup as we've seen in our lifetime. But the Braves rotation, you're now relying on Charlie Morton tonight, 40 years old, and pitchers are getting hurt at an insane rate right now in Major League Baseball. You're relying on calling up Bryce Elder. You're relying on guys that you should not have to end those streaks. And I just think this Braves rotation currently as it's assembled isn't built to withstand an injury. On the other side, the Phillies, Ranger Suarez, and he'll probably regress a little to somewhat of what he used to be, but you have a three-headed attack now. Zach Wheeler's your favorite for NL Cy Young. He's been awesome for years, extremely reliable. Aaron Nola, while people don't like him, he's always in the mix at the end of the year for the Cy Young Award. Absolutely reliable. Ranger Suarez gives them that third guy in the attack. I think the Phillies are worth the look. Also happened to look today that DraftKings had to win the division and win the National League. You can get the Phillies at 10-1.
Yeah, I wouldn't say no, especially given the injuries for Atlanta. I guess the one thing that would turn you off is, does Atlanta go get whatever arm's going to be available at the deadline?
Well, and that's the problem, is Alex Anthopoulos, you have to remember in 2021, when they won the World Series, Ronald Acuna Jr. went down. They won a World Series without their best player, a guy who had a historic season a year ago. Why? Anthopoulos went out and got Eddie Rosario. He got Jorge Soler. He addressed issues in the bullpen, the rotation. He's going to be an aggressive GM because, look, they have a window to win right now. So the top arm that's available, you can bet Atlanta will be in on them.
Yep. All right, really quickly, you are a Brave man, so you're going first five Phillies and the Dodgers today, first five, huh?
Yeah, I'm not buying Michael King as a starting pitcher, guys. I don't see what everyone else is seeing. He was a pretty good reliever with the Yankees till he popped his elbow on a random pitch. And Tyler Glasnow has been absolutely dominant. The issue with Tyler Glasnow is not whether or not he's a great pitcher. It's whether or not he can stay healthy. That's the only issue there. He's coming off 7 innings to earn 10 punch-outs against the Bravos and their offense. 6-1 on the year, 63 strikeouts in 50 innings. And LA as a combined offense, 18 for 60. That's 300 on the dot against Michael King with 7 homers, 14 ribbies, and 1,000 OPS. I just think the Dodgers offense can get to everyone, especially someone like Michael King. I'll lay that half run at $1.30. Sorry to give you guys all chalk on my first appearance on Primetime, but that's just the way things fell today.
Man, we just we're pulling for your bets, but we also would enjoy a Dodgers loss because they're 7-0 in this month.
Point.
So at some point they got to start dropping off there. So Dodgers up after the first 5 and then lose the game would be a perfect result for us.
As long as you don't come on here and recommend the Astros to bounce back or anything.
No,
like that.
I'm ready to. I'm very close to jumping in on that.
I can't watch Alex Bregman pop out to nothing again. I can't do this anymore.
Before I let you run, of course, Dustin is a busy man. Sharp Money each and every weekday here on VSiN right before us, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern time. Double play a baseball podcast, Sharp Money, Live Bet Sunday on Sundays. Final 20 seconds. Excitement level for Paul Skeens' debut tomorrow.
I would stand up, but I think the FCC would have to blur things out to let you know how excited I am for the most hyped prospect we've seen since Steven Strasburg.
Still not the best rookie pitcher on the Pirates.
He's going to be.
Fun fact, Steven Strasburg's debut was against the Pittsburgh Pirates. June 8th, 2010. Your boy was there.
I think you oversold the fun on that.
14 strikeouts for Steven Strasburg. Bring it up, Paul Skeens. Dustin Sweetelson. Check out his podcast, Double Play, a baseball podcast. Todd Furman talking Night on Ice next.
This is VSiN Primetime with Tim Murray and Jonathan Von Tobel on VSiN, the sports betting network.
NBA playoffs heating up, folks, and so is the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. New customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code VSiN. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Alongside Jonathan Von Tobel, I am Tim Murray. Top of the hour, the New York Knicks and the Indiana Pacers going to tip off in Indianapolis. 2-0 lead for the New York Knicks. Of course, no OG Anunoby. 7.5 is your spread pretty much across the board. A couple sevens out there. On the ice tonight, 2 more games in the Stanley Cup playoffs as the Florida Panthers visit the Boston Bruins and the Edmonton Oilers look to bounce back after blowing a lead against the Vancouver Canucks. And to help us break it down, it is Todd Furman from CBS Sports HQ and Bet the Board podcast. You can follow him on Twitter at Todd Furman. He joins us on our progressive guest line. Todd, let's start with a game that's going to drop the puck at the top of the hour. We've got Florida at Boston. You're the numbers guy. It can't be too often that we see Boston catching, being an underdog at home here. 1-1 is this series. What do you make of this spread where Florida is around a -130 favorite on Boston's ice?
It definitely doesn't happen often, but you can understand what we've seen even through the first 2 games where Florida split at home and now has to go on the road trying to regain home ice advantage. But the main reason we've seen this number start to move from where it opened right around -$1.15 in the wake of that Game 2 demolition from the Panthers is the return of Sam Bennett to the lineup. And he is extremely important. You wouldn't know it by the stat sheet where he only accumulated 41 points this season. But being a second-line center, it's a position where Boston is a little bit thin. It allows Florida to offer up a lot more depth, and it gives them a decided advantage in their bottom 6 forward grouping. So that's part of the reason this number has taken off. We'll see how effective he is. Guys, my number on this game was -$1.31, so I'd love to come in and say I had a compelling angle to try and make a case for the Panthers. I think you're going to get major pushback from the Bruins. Jeremy Swayman could bounce back, but still lean towards Florida. There are some 120s and 123, I believe, right there in your backyard.
Yep.
I'd have no problem betting Florida right there at Circa.
Yeah, literally behind us. Yep. Well, Todd, what about the total? Because this 5.5 is pretty juiced to the under at a vast majority of shops.
You know, we've seen the trend for over so far in this second round, JVT, and I think the main reason why officials don't hesitate to call penalties. Early on in these series, they love to give teams a man advantage here and there and create a little bit of that scoring. My concern about going under the total in this game is the play of Sergei Bobrovsky for Florida. We haven't seen him yet. The form that catapulted that team to the Stanley Cup final a season ago. And while Florida's defensive structure should be able to hold up in this particular spot, it wouldn't shock me at all if we were talking about a 3-2 game deep into the third period needing to sweat an empty net again. So would lean under the total in this spot, but I think the better angle will be looking to go under in Game 4, knowing one of these teams will essentially have their season hanging in the balance come this weekend.
Panthers-Bruins, they start the doubleheader tonight as, once again, as Todd mentioned, the cheapest price, if you do like the Panthers, right here at Circa at -123. It looks like you can get a +110, even offshore, maybe like +115 or so if you do like the Boston Bruins tonight. All right, Todd, let's go to the late night one. And Edmonton, everybody, it was funny. We talked to Nick Alberga, JVT, 2 nights ago, and we talked about this series, how not many people were giving the Canucks much of a shot. Edmonton comes out, big lead, and it looks like they're going to run away, and they blow said lead. Vancouver now, interesting to note, still an underdog in this series, an underdog at home tonight. I think most people would anticipate a bounce-back performance from the Edmonton Oilers. You seem a bit shaky, though, on this Oilers squad, and you're not racing to take them at around -125 to come back in the series, are you?
Well, first things first, you always have to take what Nick says with a grain of salt. He's an angry Maple Leafs fan who feels much maligned by the way the hockey gods have not smiled upon that fan base for the better part of the last 50 years. So when you have a Canadian team that has a chance to get to the conference finals, you can understand why some of that bitterness shows through. But the big storyline to follow in the game tonight will be the status of Leon Draisaitl. He pretty much said he's a true 50-50 candidate to be out there. Draisaitl is second leading scorer on this Oilers team. Now, they do have guys that are more than capable of stepping up. We know Zach Hyman with 50-plus goals this year. Connor McDavid, no doubt, will want to generate a little bit more considering he had 0 shots on goal in Game 1. But I thought odds makers were overestimating some of the capabilities for the Oilers in this series. When you looked at that price, they were -270 coming in. Considering that they were only right around a $2 favorite against the LA Kings, I think that people had kind of cast off Vancouver knowing there wasn't going to be Thatcher Demko. I from the Canucks. Even when they got themselves down 4-1, the team never showed quit. They never strayed from some of their structure, and they were rewarded, albeit with a couple fortuitous bounces and soft goals against Stuart Skinner. Draisaitl, for me, if he gets ruled out in this game, you're going to have an opportunity to enter the market at a much more advantageous price. So I would kind of take the wait-and-see approach if you like the Oilers there. As the number continues to drift out, if he's out there, I think he's only a shell of himself. And with Adam Henrique, also a game-time decision, who plays a prominent role in the top 6 in terms of giving them some grit, I wouldn't rule out making a case for Vancouver Vancouver is a live underdog, but this is one where you're going to have to monitor who's available. And I think if Draisaitl is available and Henrique is out, I might be more inclined to go under the total, especially if I can go under 6 at plus $1.10.
So, Todd, I made the comp, and I think it seems pretty accurate at this point right now. Carolina, New York, is this Minnesota, Phoenix in the NBA all over again? I mean, the market was all over Carolina. They were series favorites. They were favored in 2 games in New York. They're down 3-0 in this series. What did the market get wrong?
A little bit of a different parallel here, only that the Phoenix Suns were completely outclassed from start to finish in that series. Carolina, a little bit unfortunate in the way the puck is bounced. When you look at how they got knocked out of the playoffs last year in the Eastern Conference Finals versus what we're seeing so far against the Rangers, I mean, they just can't win a game that goes past 60 minutes. It's been a real problem where they can't get a bounce at the right time. I don't think the market got a whole heck of a lot wrong. The one thing that when you look at this Rangers team, all the underlying metrics always suggest that this team is undervalued because it is so difficult in the National Hockey League to quantify the impact of one player. And in this case, it's Igor Shesterkin, who has been outstanding. But the Rangers have done a tremendous job trying to keep a lot of the shots to the periphery, allowing Shesterkin to see most of these opportunities. And the Rangers special teams have given them a truly competitive advantage. So Carolina, bounce here or bounce there. The Canes could be up 2-1 in the series, but unfortunately for Rod Brindamore's bunch, they find themselves staring down the barrel of an early elimination again. And we'll see what kind of pushback. Look, I don't think Carolina comes back to win the series, but it wouldn't shock me if the Canes are able to get a bounce or two and maybe push this to as many as 6 games here.
You know, Todd, I saw, Carolina makes a tweak and goal yesterday, and I'm not going to say it was a disaster by any stretch. The game went to overtime. Igor Shesterkin, as you alluded to, 45 saves. Shouts to you and Johnny Lazarus on that little nugget there to play the save prop. But what do we make of the goaltending kind of competition here with Carolina not seeming to have a full belief in who's in the net?
You know, I have to believe that Rod Brindamore will go back to Pyotr Kochetkov in Game 4. When you look at the way the first 2 games of this series went, Freddie Anderson wasn't bad, but the problem being is that Anderson gave up a soft goal in each of those 2 games, and you just don't have that luxury with such thin margins this time of year, and that's what's kind of plagued the Hurricanes. We go back to Game 1, they start to battle back. He gives up a short side goal to Artemi Panarin, and it was just too much to overcome. Kochetkov looked confident in net, didn't have to make a lot of 10-bell saves by any stretch, and you wonder if the youngster will get another crack in this particular spot. I think going back to that Shesterkin save angle is probably the best way to attack it in Game 4. We know Carolina is going to do everything they can to get pucks on net. Haven't seen a number yet widely available, but I have to imagine odds makers will open in the low 30s. And Carolina, the one thing we saw from them last year when they were on the brink of elimination, they did everything they could to get pucks on net. And I think you see a similar storyline unfold in Game 4 tomorrow.
Yeah, just real quickly, as you mentioned the shot prop yesterday, it was 30.5 for Igor Shesterkin, and it was plus 105 to the over. Right now, it's 30.5 at DraftKings, minus 125 to the over. So we've seen a shift of 30 cents in the juice.
Yeah, man, you can understand why the pricing is there. These elimination games for teams, you know they're going to do everything they can. And if they do find themselves down late in the contest, I mean, that's where you can pick up a boatload of extra opportunities playing 6-on-5, whether it's for 2 minutes or a little bit longer. So I think Carolina, that's the one thing we've grown accustomed to from the Hurricanes. They dominate Corsi and a lot of those underlying metrics. It's a team not afraid to get pucks on net. Not always the best in terms of finding the back of the net, which tends to plague teams when you get this deep into the postseason.
All right, real quick, last minute with you. Tomorrow night, Colorado and Dallas, minus 130 for Colorado. Any vibe there?
You know, when I look at this game here, JVT, I think playing the underdog in this series, regardless of who's in that price is going to be an advantageous spot. I think Dallas goes on the road. They may not win Game 3, but if you're willing to bet them for both Game 3 and Game 4, I think you can come away with a crumb of profit. Love the fact that they've been able to build 3-0 and 4-0 leads. And the one thing about the Stars, they've been one of the best road teams in the NHL. I think Dallas is gaining confidence a little bit at a time. You would have liked to see them put their foot down instead of letting Colorado back into it. But I think the Stars will find a way to at least get a split. So if you bet them in Game 3, maybe lay off in Game 4, or be willing to go back to the well if they drop Game 3 at Ball Arena.
He's Todd Furman, CBS Sports HQ. Bet the Board, the podcast, wherever you get your podcast. Todd, always appreciate it, man. Enjoy the games tonight.
Always a pleasure, gentlemen. Enjoy the hoops and enjoy the hockey as well.
There he is, Todd Furman, joining us on our progressive guest line. That's Jonathan Von Tobel. I'm Tim Murray. Final thoughts on the 2 games about to get underway at the top of the hour. And what did Jason Tatum say last night? We'll get to all of that on the other side. It's VSiN Primetime.